Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Asherz, and this is.
Tobias.
Oh my gosh, you did it! Are you going to thank me this time for being here?
You know what? I will because it's the holidays. Thank you, Asherz.
Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for coming back. I thought for sure last time I was like, yeah, he's never coming back again. That's We talked too much about TVs. It was strange. No,
I brought up I actually brought up TVs, and you couldn't keep me away. This is too much fun.
I'm glad to have you back. How was your weekend? How's your last 2 weeks been?
Good, good, boy. Yeah, it's been exciting with getting the new book out and everything. Like you're always really relieved. Like once it's done, it's published, it's out there, but then you have to start all of the appearances. And for something like this, like I'm trying to cram so many into such a short amount of time because it's a holiday book, right? So we have a relatively small window, and so I've got something like 10 or 12 different podcasts that I'm doing over the course of the next, you know, s- several weeks, like up until Christmas time. And so I did Jim Harold's show last week, which was
Oh,
fantastic. I mean, Jim
he's great.
is
Yeah.
he is great. He's a great guy. He is a consummate professional. Just I can't say enough good things about him and about working with him. And if you're ever on his show, it's just a great experience, beginning to end. And so it was nice to be able to sort of kick everything off with Jim's show because it's so great. And then I've got, I don't know, a million other uh, appearances lined up between then and the end of the month. But it's all good stuff. At this point, I feel like I know so many people that I'm doing like a dozen podcasts, but it's all people I know. Like it's all friends.
Yeah.
So that makes it so much easier. I used to dread going on podcasts and stuff because I didn't know anybody, and you never know what you're gonna get if you don't if you're not familiar with that person, And so like I can't tell you how many times I've been on shows and like they won't have anything prepared, or like they don't know who I am, and they'll ask me questions about stuff that is not related to anything I've done, and like
Yeah.
I handle it like it is what it is. But it's very anxiety inducing for me. Like I'm already kind of a nervous person, and so yeah, just being able to kind of know what to expect helps so much. So under normal circumstances, I would be hating this whole month, but considering I'm, what's happening, and it's all people I know and everything, like I think it's going to be awesome. It's going to be super super fun. So,
Yeah,
but
I had
yeah,
said that on Twitter a while back about, if you invite somebody on your show, at least kind of have an idea of who they are. Like, don't, because
right.
so many times I've been invited on and they're like, "Oh, what do you want to talk about?" And I'm like, what do you mean? What do I want to talk about? Why are you having me on your show?" So
it,
I get it.
yeah, it feels like the bare minimum, really, to at least know who the hell somebody is. Like, I can't tell you how many times, like, people will hear the word Mothman associated with like something I've done. And so they'll have me on their show, and they want to talk about Point Pleasant. And like, that's
Mhm.
fine, but that's not the area of my greatest expertise when it comes to winged humanoid sightings. And so I'm like, like, did you read my book? Oh, okay. If you didn't, that's fine. Do you know it exists? Because if you don't, why am I on your show? Like, what are we doing here? What is the point?
Yeah. Yeah, it gets me every time. They're like, "Well, what do you want to talk about?" I'm like, I don't know. I don't.
Yeah,
What
you
do you want
called
to talk
me.
about?
I don't.
Right. It gets me every time. They're always like, I don't mind when they're like, "Hey, could you do a bio? Hey, send me some." I don't care about that part. It's when they're like, "What do you want to talk about?" I'm like, uh, I have no idea. Now, I purposefully do not vet my guests on the show. Some of them I already know, because
Hmm.
again, they're chosen by you guys, the listeners. But I don't vet them, because I kind of want the conversation to flow naturally, and I really want to learn, and I want that experience to be shown on the show in real time, that I'm learning about them and their topic. And it has worked out tremendously. But I would never have the balls to be like, "So what do you want to talk about?" Like that's
Right? Like you just showed up at their house, and they're
right,
like, okay, well, you're here. Like, what do you want? Like, no,
right,
dude, like you invited me. Like you need to
right.
have something to start this conversation with.
Yeah, what'd you invite me here for? I don't.
Like literally, like you're just
Well,
you're
I don't
just standing
know.
there like an asshole. Like, okay, well, you called me. Like, why am I here? Yeah.
So yeah, no, I completely understand it. That's exciting. Did you have any other shows between now and the next time you're on that you wanted to plug away, or do you want to wait until then?
Oh boy, I'm trying to think of what's going to be live or not, and I don't remember what
Yeah.
all is live. I'll tell you what. This week, let's see. I know I'm going to be recording with Tim Banal for Banal of America, which would be exciting.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to be this Friday, I'm going to be on live with Lon Strickler for Phantoms and Monsters Radio. Now, Lon's show I know is going to be live. So if anybody has any interest this Friday, come and check that out. Hang out in the chat room. You can ask us questions and all that fun stuff. We're going to be talking some winged humanoids. Of course, we're going to be talking about my new book, the Singular Fortean Society's Yuletide Guide to High Strangeness. So yeah, should be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Fantastic. Anything that you've been doing in your personal life that you want to talk about?
Yeah, it's so much Christmas stuff. We went to yeah, well, I love Christmas. I do. I didn't have to write a book about it to enjoy it. I've loved it my whole life. It's always been my favorite holiday. Everybody thinks it's going to be Halloween, right? And I like Halloween fine, but no, Christmas has always been it. Like that's the one for me. But yeah, so we've been doing Christmassy stuff. Emily's got the whole interior of the house decorated in a what I find to be very tasteful manner, frankly. Like there's lots of lights and stuff. It looks super cool.
Yeah.
We went and bought some more crap for the outside of the house, which I don't get that excited for decorating outside because you don't see it. Like we decorate
That's
inside and it's
true.
awesome, right? Like and that's awesome because I'm hanging around inside all the time. So it's super Christmassy in here. And then like I'll put kind of the bare minimum outside so people know that like we are celebrating Christmas, but like I'm not spending a lot of time on it, you know.
You don't want people to, you want them to know that you're into it at least, you gotta
Right?
let them
Yeah,
know.
yeah. But again, I'm not sitting out in my front yard like marveling at our lights or anything. So it's going to be very minimalist. But no, like we always do cool Christmas stuff. We went to there was a Christmas market in Oconomowoc. And that is a very Wisconsin name,
It
just
is.
for anybody listening. Yeah. So if you saw it spelled, you probably would have no idea how to pronounce it, but now you do because you're listening to me telling you how to say it, and it is Oconomowoc. But anyway, yeah, they always have a really nice Christmas market there. It's very sort of traditional German Christmas market.
Oh, cool.
And so it's super fun. There's always, like local vendors. There's like, they have a bunch of food and most of it has like a German bent. So you can get, like pretzels and schnitzel and sausages and stuff. And it's just super awesome. And
Yeah.
there's always one vendor. And this dude, he like cuts and welds iron into different like, signs and shapes and stuff. And he always has a bunch of Bigfoot stuff, like always. And so every year I buy a new Bigfoot thing that he's made out of metal. And this year it was a little stand. It's like a silhouette and it's on a little stand and it's made out of like steel coated in some kind of like matte black finish. And it's literally like Sasquatch on the toilet for some reason. And he's like reading
Oh,
a newspaper or something. Yeah. And so now that's in our cryptid themed bathroom.
he's probably reading the Singular Fortean Society's Yuletide Guide to High Strangeness. So
I would imagine
that's
it's either that or Weekly World News.
which are equally as which is equally as credible.
Oh, of course. That's the only place I get my news.
Yep. No, that's awesome. He's probably like, wow, this guy comes every year. He must really like Bigfoot. Like, that's great.
And he's right.
He's right.
So,
Yeah,
but
I
yeah,
love that.
what have you been doing? That's the
Oh,
real important question. That's what people want to hear
well,
about. What has Asher's been up to?
I don't I gotta get used to this change. Nobody ever asked me about my weekend. Up until this point in my life. Yeah, no, I've been working on the new shows a lot. So doing a lot of recording there. I am what I'm going to start doing to for the Patreon members. So the three new shows, you guys aren't going to hear them until after the new year. And that is completely dependent on if the recording schedule continues to go perfectly and everybody is on time. And that's okay if they're not, right? Because you guys have this show every Wednesday. But what I'm going to do for the Patreons is they're going to get full access to the shows as they're being recorded. So you can hear them over there. You guys are just gonna get the raw audio. So don't expect me to pamper you with an edited episode. But I figured that'd be fun. That way you guys get an idea of what's coming up, and it's super exciting. It's really great. So and then I've also done a couple of other shows as well here and there, obviously, because I just got done bitching about some of them. Just kidding. They're great. This week I have like three other shows that I'm going to be on. None of them are live, I don't think. So I don't think I have anything to promote. But, I've just been kind of working, I guess, is mainly what I've been doing. I've been trying to do the Christmas thing. My house isn't even decorated yet. It's already December 4th. It might as well be Christmas. Like, I'm way behind.
You It will be here before you know it. So yes,
I
if you
know.
want to enjoy any Christmassy things, like you got to get on it, because I
Want
hate
to.
decorating. I mean, I like it when it's done. I hate the process of decorating. But you just got to do it. You gotta hold your nose and just take the bite and just fucking get through
Yeah,
it,
I just
because
do it. I know.
otherwise, yeah, it's just never gonna get done.
I keep saying, I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. And then I don't know. And then I don't know what happens. And then it's nighttime and it's time for bed. I don't know. I don't know what's been going on lately. I've
Next thing you
experienced a lot of
know,
lost time.
yeah, right. Next thing you know, it's January 2nd, and yes, you're
Yeah,
sitting alone at home in a featureless white room with no decorations.
yeah, exactly. So I gotta get it together. Well, my mom, okay, my mom, I have an all right mom. She works 12-hour shifts at a hospital, so she is a very busy working person all the time. When she's not at work, okay, because she works 12-hour shifts, that means sometimes she gets 4 days off in a week. And when she's not at work, okay, she's on the phone with me constantly. And what we do, okay, I love Christmas. I am a crazy Christmas person. I have 3 Christmas trees, you guys, I'm not kidding, and I live in a 2-bedroom apartment, all right? But my mom will call me and I have to Christmas shop for everybody. For her, basically. She'll be like, well, I'm thinking about getting your sister this. Should I get this one or this one? I'll pick one. She'll be like, well, what about this third option? And they're all identical items, basically. I pretty much pick out everybody's Christmas gifts. I don't think they realize it. you know, and we do Christmas big. I mean, it's always really big, and we are very materialistic people, I guess, because we just, I don't know. When it's Christmas time, every dime that I have goes towards Christmas presents. It's just the way it is.
Well,
And
yeah.
my mom's, that's how she is, so it's always a big ordeal. So again, I'm Christmas shopping for all of my family members. I've been doing a lot of that lately. So anytime that I'm off, and she knows I'm off, she's on the phone with me making me shop for Christmas. So thankfully, I think she's done. I think she has bought Christmas already for everyone. So we'll see how that continues to go. And then I've been doing this thing where I am notorious for not having seen a lot of movies that other people have seen. Like, that is just, I don't usually get a lot of time to sit around and watch a bunch of movies. I just never really have throughout my entire life. So I have asked people on social media what their favorite Christmas movie is, and I have put it into a list, and I probably have like 100 movies. Okay.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, probably easily 100 movies. And, some of them I've seen, most of them I haven't. So I've been going down the list and watching all of them, all of them. And admittedly, what that looks like is there is constantly something Christmas playing on my TV at all times, pretty much. There's not right now, I'm recording. But while I am just doing whatever, there is something Christmas on TV. And then I've been writing little reviews about them over on Facebook and Twitter. So that's been what I've been doing.
Well, what have you seen lately?
Oh gosh. Well, I've seen a lot of
Just
classics.
okay.
Um, things that I haven't watched though, things that were new to me this year. I think the only one so far was Deck the Halls. Have you seen that one?
No, well, I mean maybe, but I don't recognize it.
It's got it's got Danny DeVito and Matthew Broderick in it. Okay, so big
Wait,
names, right?
yes, I have seen that. Okay, yeah,
Have
I just
you?
didn't.
Yes.
I didn't remember what it was called. Okay, yep.
It's
But
it's
continue
okay.
with your description for other people.
Yes, I will describe it for other people. So Danny DeVito moves across the street from Matthew Broderick during the holidays, and Danny DeVito is having a midlife crisis. And so he decides that he has a goal. His daughters show him that you can see houses from a satellite view, like a Google satellite, but I don't think Google satellite existed at the time when the movie was made. And
Right.
or maybe it was new. And you couldn't see his house from the satellite. So his goal was to be able to have his house seen from space. And he decides to do that with Christmas lights. And shenanigans, of course, happen. And Matthew Broderick is the angry neighbor who is tired of the bright lights and the shenanigans, and hilarity ensues. So it was okay.
Yeah, it was fine. I don't. It's right up there with like Jingle All the Way for me, where
Yeah.
it has almost like an uncomfortable level of conflict for a Christmas movie, to where I'm just like, I don't watch Christmas movies to see people fighting necessarily.
Right. People hate
I
each
mean,
other.
yeah, right. If it's not Silent Night, Deadly Night or something, then I'm
Right.
not here for it. In terms of like conflict in a Christmas movie, like it's still fine and it can still be funny, but I'm not one of those people who really finds conflict humorous a lot of the time.
Right.
Even if it's sort of like cartoonish violence and stuff like that. So yeah, I much prefer like Christmas Chronicles or something, like where there is conflict, but it's all like magical bad guys and people getting into hijinks and nobody's like mean, and it's not like neighbors being nasty to each other or anything like that, which is it's just not very Christmassy.
It's so weird how much I've now so far seen two movies where it's neighbors having conflict and at Christmas
Right.
time, and it's like, why is this a
It happens
thing?
all the time. It's like a massive theme in Christmas movies. Like, what was the one, like Christmas with the Cranks? Their whole
Yeah,
neighborhood is just filled with like psychopaths trying to decorate their house. And I'm like, leave these people alone. Like,
right.
what
Let them
is
go on their
wrong with
cruise.
you? Right?
Let Tim Allen and Jamie Lee Curtis enjoy their cruise.
It's like, seriously, like this is America. You can't just harass people like that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I
I
don't
just
get that
don't like
either.
it.
I'm not a big fan of it. Somebody had given me a gripe about oh great, the weed whacker guy is gonna whack his weed off right outside my window right now. There he goes. Okay, I'm gonna leave that in the recording. Anyway, people have been not enjoying my hot takes. I talked about Polar Express and how terrible it was. I gave it a 0. It's the only 0 I've done so far. Hate that movie. It's
That
horrible. It's
movie,
scary.
it is, yeah, it
It's
is
ugly.
scary, and right. Well, it's scary because it's ugly. Like the
Yeah.
reality of it is that movie is pure high octane nightmare fuel because of the uncanny valley effect. That
Yeah.
animation is unnatural. It's not okay. And there's a reason that you don't see a lot of movies with that animation, and it's because it's terrifying and nobody likes it.
Nobody likes it. And I'm a horror fan, and I'm like, this is awful.
Oh yeah, no, totally. Like I love horror movies. Like the trashier, the better, whatever.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
if if something is unintentionally awful, like you're trying to make a cute Hollywood movie, but instead you come up with this nightmarish vision of Tom Hanks, as an animated ghoul. Like, no thanks. Like
Yeah.
I'll pass.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's not a good movie. I don't know why people like it. Listen, if you're listening to this and you're mad at me because you like Polar Express, it's fine. You can like what you like. I don't understand it, but you're allowed to like things.
Oh yeah, whatever.
Um, don't let me take that away from you. But it didn't get as much hate as so far. Like Christmas with the Cranks, people really like that one, and I gave it a 2 out of 10. And
Yeah.
somebody like compared it. They're like, "Well, you gave Home Alone a 10 out of 10. Like, why did you give this a 2?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Home Alone is the shit. What do you mean? What?" It was
Right.
so weird.
Well,
It was so weird.
fundamentally, people just need to understand, like, okay, well, why did she give this one a 2 and this one a 10? Because people like different things, you numbskull. Like, it's fine.
What? They do?
I right? Is that allowed? I didn't
Right.
know.
That's absurd. I know. But I'm going to keep doing it. I think people are enjoying it. I think that it is a good contrast to monsters. And of course, there's going to be some horror movies. I did Gremlins, which is a yearly watch for me. Great,
Nice.
great Christmas movie.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I love what she talks about her dad dying. That's great Christmas cheer there. Totally fitting.
Right.
But no, it's of course I'm going to talk about horror Christmas movies. There's some that I really like and some that I've never gotten to watch. So we will get there. So that's what I've been up to. That's what I've been doing lately.
Nice.
So
very good. Very good.
I've been getting my Christmas fix otherwise, but soon I will have it with my lights and pretty things surrounding me. So we'll get there. All right, let me pull up this the news. You want some news for the week?
I think that we need some news,
We
frankly.
need some news. Yeah, I got all of these from Weekly World News, so they're good. I didn't actually.
That's how you know it's legit.
So an Indian man back on November 30th had gotten into a terrible car accident and he had died. Unfortunately, while the family was wrapping up, getting ready to autopsy him, they were actually in the morgue itself with the body, and he started moving. He was not dead. His name was I think it's Shrikesh Kumar. That's how you say it. I'm a white people, so I apologize for the bad pronunciation. But, Kumar had gotten to a really gruesome car accident. He was in the morgue freezer for 7 hours and then eventually woke up 7 hours later. He is now recovering in the hospital. He's alive.
Well, good for him.
The hospital's like, well, I mean, we had several doctors check him out, and he was like dead for real. I don't know. And
did they though?
That's what I mean.
Because you hear about these kinds of stories a lot, and they're always from countries that have undeveloped or underdeveloped regions, and so you have to wonder, like, okay, well, how qualified are their doctors, and assuming that these doctors are qualified up to what we would consider to be our standards or whatever, then how overworked are they? Are they servicing 1,000 patients per doctor or something, where they only have 3 seconds to look at somebody, slap their ass, and call them dead?
Right?
Because it just shouldn't happen with this level of frequency.
And it doesn't happen really in America. We don't get the stories from here. It's always You're right. It's always somewhere else, some other country. And what was interesting is that one of the hospital representatives had said that the freezer that he was kept in, so had that freezer been running for 7 hours straight, he would have died of hypothermia. But they said that the freezer was faulty, so we already know right there that it is a hospital with not a lot of money, and that it would kind of kick off and kick back on. And they think that whatever that was that happened, with that temperature difference constantly changing, that's what helped whatever his ailment was that made him appear dead. So I'm not a medical doctor. I don't know how that works exactly. I don't know if the temperature change helped. But if you think you're having a bad day, let me tell you about this gentleman in India. That's not a great time. I mean, that sucks. But thankfully he did wake up and they discovered that he was alive before it was too late. My God, how many times do they do that though?
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, for instance, how many times has the freezer worked and the person just died? You'd never know. It's not like you're going to find out.
They just would freeze to death, and that's it.
Right.
So, I don't know. I always think these stories are fun. Sometimes, it does happen where, you have these people that are dead that end up in pretty, really good decent hospitals that do declare that they're dead, and then they wake up and they'll even talk to people sometimes, and then they'll lay back down and die again. It's so weird. I don't know
That
why
is
that
weird.
happens. It is weird. The one story I think of all the time is, I think, as it was a boy. I think it was somewhere in South America, a little boy, and they would take the bodies home. In that culture, for the wake, and then the boy sat up and asked for a glass of water, and the parents rushed him to the hospital. By the time they got there, he was dead again, and that is weird. I don't know. But who knows? I'm sure there's some scientific explanation for it. I just think science. I mean, it doesn't happen so often that it's an epidemic.
Sure. Well, I think I mean the probably the easiest solution to come to there would be that like if somebody sits up and starts talking to you after they had died, they hadn't actually died. And
Yes,
maybe
right.
they were just really close to death, and because it can be difficult, I think, for well, especially for lay people. Like I don't know, I'm just like you, also not a doctor, so my ability, and probably most people who aren't doctors or nurses or other qualified medical professionals, we don't have the ability to declare someone dead
Right.
with any accuracy, right? And so, like, yeah, I mean, if I was next to somebody and I thought they were dead and they sat up and talked to me, that would be very disconcerting. But the obvious
Yes.
solution is they weren't dead.
Yeah.
They looked dead, but they weren't dead.
But right,
They
they
were
weren't
like
really dead.
hospital in India dead, which isn't, that's not
You're just
100%. You need to triple check that.
you're just faking it for attention. Oh my god, that's terrible to say. I'm just kidding. No, but I agree with that. Obviously, they weren't dead from the get go. Like that guy clearly wasn't dead. Somebody didn't do their job right, and that's just the way it is. Or they said that they did and they didn't. They just assumed somebody else did it. I can relate to that. You're at work and you're like, well, someone would handle that. I guess I wouldn't when it comes to people, but then again, even though you're dealing in the practice of people, it's still a job. You still go into that autopilot mode and just kind of do what you do to bring home your paycheck. And I suppose it can happen in a medical setting too. A medical malpractice is a huge deal. So
Oh
it's
yeah,
not like we do have a
right.
lot of that in America.
Oh yeah,
So
no, there's no shortage of medical malpractice here, and I want to be clear because this will be listened to on the internet, so I can only imagine what people will begin to say if I don't clarify. I'm not. This is not an indictment of India's medical system. I'm not saying that there aren't like wholly educated and qualified doctors in India. I'm just saying in any country, I think if you've got an overtaxed hospital system, especially in more rural areas, then you are more likely to either get someone who is unqualified, which happens everywhere. It happens in America, it happens in Europe, whatever, or somebody who is otherwise qualified who is just running on empty, and it's a lot
mhm.
easier to make mistakes in that situation. That's all.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially India's population is way bigger than ours.
Oh God, yeah.
So they're dealing with a lot more people, and we don't know. But I mean, I think that I agree totally with what you're saying. But I think that the fact that like the freezer that they're putting their dead in doesn't work correctly is kind of a testament to maybe where this
Right.
happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. That is a glaring indictment of that hospital, that they had a wonky freezer that they knew about,
Right.
and it didn't get fixed, and they're like, well, how cold do bodies really need to be, right? Like if we
Right.
just if we hustle through this process, it won't even hardly be it won't hardly be decomposing by the time we get it out of there. So if it's working like half the time, we just need to work twice as fast.
Exactly. So, I don't know. Interesting story though. Like I said, I like talking about these. I like to bring them up when they're brought up. I think they're neat. So, anyway, on to different news. Actually, a Christmas story, a Christmas news.
Nice.
So this past Sunday, which was December the 3rd, a family in Lexington, Kentucky, were just enjoying their evening at home when they heard shots fired outside. And when they went to go investigate said shots fired, they found that their inflatable Santa Claus decoration had become the victim of a drive-by shooting. Now,
Wow.
nobody else's. They have neighbors that have other inflatables, and nobody else's were shot at, just theirs. So either they have an enemy somewhere or somebody really, really hates Santa Claus.
You know who might have done that? Adam Benedict. I am dead serious. Adam, my good friend Adam Adam Benedict of the Pine Barrens Institute hates inflatable decorations. Hates
That's
them.
true. He does. Yeah, he does.
Right. So
He loves
I mean,
them.
I don't know if he was in Kentucky when this happened, but I'm going to find out.
Yeah. Where was he
So
this
we will.
weekend? You don't know?
I
Yeah.
Well, actually, no. If it was this past weekend, well, wait, but when? Because I was going to say, Emily and I went out to dinner with Adam and his wife Amber on Saturday. But if it
Okay.
wasn't at like 7 p.m. on Saturday, then I don't know where he was. He could have been anywhere, even shooting inflatables in Kentucky.
I mean, it was Sunday. It's only like a 6 to 8 hour drive from there, so
That's not that far. Yeah.
it's not that far. But why Santa? Why Santa specifically? Does he hate Santa?
Well, see now that I don't know.
Okay.
It's difficult to comprehend the kind of diseased mind that would hate inflatable decorations. So,
That's the same
I'm
kind of person that calls them rods. You know what I mean? So it's
oh god, yeah, gross. I mean, when you're talking skyfish, you start throwing around words like rods, you lose all credibility.
yeah.
So,
So I
but
think he might
I
have
hope he
solved the
doesn't
case.
listen to this. Yeah, maybe.
No, in all seriousness, and not to implicate Adam further, even though he probably totally did it. Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird story. It's not surprising, as weird as that is. I suppose someone just wanted to make a point. Like I said, it's either one of two things. They hate Santa so much they're going around taking out Santa decorations, but there aren't other reports yet of similar things. Or they hate that family, which is even more horrifying, and they should probably move.
For real. It's honestly, that's got to be somebody who just hates them for some reason. Because if you, well, okay, one, kids probably aren't going to be driving around shooting at inflatables for like a prank or something like that. Seems super unlikely. Um, and if it was somebody who was just going to drive around and shoot inflatables, I mean, why just that one? That
Yeah.
seems really like suspicious to me. So yeah, I would guess it's just some fucking nut who doesn't like this family for whatever reason, who decided they were gonna go assassinate their Santa Claus.
I mean, maybe there is something to these Christmas conflict movies. Maybe there's some truth to those.
Yeah, right. Maybe. I mean, it
I
certainly
don't know.
seems like yeah, like maybe the season just is bringing out the worst in certain people, and I'm lucky enough to be insulated from it most of the time, but not that unfortunate family in Kentucky, I guess.
Yeah, it was a weird one. So on to some more exciting stuff. I have a video clip for you guys, which it's audio, so you can't see it here. So you got to go to the description to watch it. I sent it over to Tobias already. Allegedly, this video was captured on November 10th in Fresno, California, and it shows um allegedly like an alien type creature. It kind of looks a lot like a gray. It's got a big bulbous head. It appears to be completely naked. The video footage is kind of hard to see. I know that the one video that I'm going to link you guys to, it's the only one that I can find on it. It also makes comparisons from that video to some other video that was shot in like Mexico or something in 94. It's not in English, so there's not a lot else to go off of besides basically the timestamp and what little French you can pick up if you know French. Tobias, what do you think about this video?
Well, I think that it is. Oh boy, I would describe it as grainy security cam footage of a man-sized humanoid doing nothing of note whatsoever. Literally looks like just some guy, and I'm guessing it's just a normal human.
Sure.
Walks out from behind a car, kind of stands there for some reason, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
They might walk back behind the car, but it's not like they're of normal height. So it's not like you're looking at like a 3 or 4 foot tall, diminutive humanoid with a bulbous head or anything. It literally just looks like a person to me. But the
Yeah.
problem with those cameras is that they're so shitty. Like they are
Yes.
just such terrible fucking quality that you get these indecipherable videos from them where they just act as fucking paranormal ciphers. They can be anything you want. You could have
Yeah.
said that was a fucking Sasquatch trying to hotwire somebody's car. You could say it's a remarkably tall gray alien. You could say it's tall white. You could say it's fucking 5 raccoons in a trench coat. It could be literally anything. And nobody could say otherwise because it's just a really terrible video.
Yeah. There's not a
I
lot to
think
go on.
right.
It is a very basic, and what gets me with these types of things, is always immediately when I become suspicious is the fact that, like, where did it come from? Like, look, I understand it came from a security camera outside of someone's home in Fresno, California, but like, where's that person? Like, who lives there? What's their story? They didn't really have one. We see these a lot. We see a lot of, especially with the Ring doorbell and things like that. There's a lot of weird stuff, that people capture that seems anomalous. Sometimes it is anomalous. Sometimes it's decent footage, but not decent enough to really discern anything. The fact of the matter is that in this day and age, anyway, video and photo evidence is just, it doesn't matter. You know? Anybody
Yeah.
can create anything. Especially now with AI, that was a very dangerous, a dangerous thing for us to put our stock into, because it could be that. It could be AI. But because we don't have anybody that's claiming that it's their video, and then the fact that it is on a French-based UFO page, it just seems very extra suspicious, right? Because they could have, I'm not saying that they did, but the person that runs that channel could have created that video with AI, just sitting home. There's nothing stopping them from doing so. So that's immediately raises red flags for me, because I cannot find the origin of it, and then just, of
Mm.
course, the bad quality of it overall. It could look like a gray alien if you want it to, or whatever.
Yeah, well, you don't even need AI to make that. I could just go walk between a couple of cars, and
Yeah.
you could record me using the night vision setting on your crappy home security camera, and I would look just like that. Like
Yeah.
that's what people don't seem to understand. And I won't go so far as to say that video and photographic evidence is necessarily useless, but if you don't know the provenance of that evidence, then it is basically worthless. Yes,
Yeah.
like you need to know where, like really know where it actually came from, because anybody can make a crappy video or some dumb photo. And what happens, and we see this all the time, especially in like cryptozoology, right, is you'll
Yeah.
see like the world's dumbest fucking photograph, and you'll see it on 3 or 4 different pages in the span of like a day, and
Hmm.
every single one of them has a different story attached to it. It's the same
Right.
photograph, but the story changes.
Yeah.
And that's because people are full of shit, and
Yep.
unfortunately. And so, like, I'm sorry, but yeah, I mean, you've got one video that somebody who, by the way, is anonymous, like the person
Right.
telling us about this is themselves anonymous, which is a huge red flag for me.
Yeah.
Like if I can't even verify that like who you are as an investigator, why would I believe anything you say?
Yeah.
Like, come on,
Yeah. They're
just
always
come
like,
on,
well,
internet.
someone sent this to me, and then you're right, you'll see like 4 or 5 different people post it in like 4 or 5 different groups or platforms or whatever, and then you never see like conflict. Like you never see anybody that pops up and is like, hey, wait a minute, calling them out like, hey, wait, you're a liar because somebody sent that to me, that's mine. Like that never happens. You know?
Oh yeah, of
They're just
course
all
not.
in on it together, kind of, they don't speak up because they know that they put that, the original poster is bullshit anyway. um and yeah, there's never any actual person that becomes available that you can talk to about it. Like, oh, you have this trail cam. Where is it set up? Roughly where is this located? When did you notice the picture? You can't, there's no line of questioning because it's always through a third party. And that's suspicious. And then the other thing that really stuck out to me about this video in particular is the location. Fresno, California. What is it known for? Oh, it's known for something anomalous. It's known for something that has to do with aliens. It's known for the Fresno Nightcrawlers, which people think are automatically alien in nature because why not? Which is already, that whole thing is already kind of up for debate in and of itself. The Nightcrawlers. Now, don't get me wrong. Listen,
Right.
I love the Walking Pants. I do. I want them to be real. But I just don't think that they are. I want them to be. But I'd be bad at my job if I wasn't honest. So,
Oh, of course. Yeah, I
um,
mean, are there a lot of
yeah.
people out there who where that's a hill that they're willing to die on? Where there's like,
Oh
no,
no.
the Fresno walking pants, 100% real. How dare you intimate otherwise? Like,
Probably, yeah.
well, I mean, like this is another video where it's got really murky origins.
Yeah.
There's not a good like consistent line of ownership. It's just
Yeah.
not good. It's not good evidence of fucking anything. The only thing
Yeah.
it's good evidence of is there are a lot of people into these subjects to be entertained, and they do not fucking care if any of it's real. That's how stuff like this catches on. Is because it's pure entertainment, and a lot of people just don't give a shit.
Now I've said a lot about the night crawlers. There are other stories of the alleged walking pants. I get it, you guys. I already know. Yes, there are people that will die on that hill. Tobias, you should know this. You've been around longer than I have.
I've
But
never met anybody who would, but I'd love to.
so take all your complaints to Tobias.
Yes,
You let him know that you are a walking pants stan. Oh, no, I shouldn't say that because I am a walking pants stan. Okay, do people even
sure.
say that anymore? Are people
I
stands for
don't
things
know.
anymore?
It's I'm
Um,
old. I'm older than you. You shouldn't ask me what's cool.
oh, that's fair enough. Keep that in mind for next time. But whether or not it's real is a totally different thing. My point was just kind of drawing the connection between the location, Fresno and Fresno. It's it could have said Roswell, New Mexico, on this new video, and I still would have been like, well, oh, a place known for weird shit, and who knows. I don't know, guys. Maybe it's 100% you are looking at a gray alien in that video. I don't know. I wasn't there. At the end of the day, that's why sometimes I'll do these video analysis. Just depends on what it is. But I've already had a couple of people approach me with this one. I didn't know I had so many listeners or fans or whatever you want to call you guys that watch French UFO channels. So that was surprising. I don't know.
You just never know. Yeah. Well, and I'm with you on this for sure. Where, look, it wouldn't be any more honest of me to say that I know exactly what this thing is, and what it is just like a normal human man doing something, than it would be for me to say, hey, I know what this thing is, and it's definitely a weirdly tall gray alien or something. But we know which one is likelier, and so
Right.
that's kind of my point. Where if you're sharing a video like this, you cannot get mad at somebody if they look at it and go, well, this is nothing, this isn't evidence of fucking anything, because the reality is it's not. And that has to be okay in this field, right? That has to be okay. We have to make our
Yeah.
peace with that.
Yeah, and we haven't. Oh God, we haven't. I've actually, that has been a conversation I've had a lot lately. Is that when you make a claim, even as an experiencer, no, you shouldn't really be made fun of and ridiculed and laughed out of the community. However, when you are making a giant claim about something and you have no evidence to back it up, you can't get upset that people don't believe you. And as an experiencer, I'm telling you that.
Yeah.
This is what it is. You are claiming that something that defies science happened to you, and you've got to understand that people, some people just in general aren't going to believe something like that happened unless it happens to them. It's just never going to happen. It doesn't matter how many times we have, UAP conferences through our government and whatever, people just aren't going to believe things until they are directly affected by it. And, same goes for video, audio, pictures, all of that stuff. Some people's not, they're not going to see exactly what you see. And it's not that, it's not that something didn't happen to you, and it's not that you didn't do the best that you could to catch evidence, because I understand the best evidence always happens when the cameras aren't rolling. It's just the way it is. But the fact of the matter is that if you're sharing a blurry photo, a blurry video, if you're showing, if you got a red circle in your photo, there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to believe it, because they weren't there. That's just it.
Yeah, well, it just comes down to standards of evidence, and we have to have some. And yeah, that's just the reality of it is that if any of this was proven, if we had the kind of evidence that it would take to prove definitively that any of these subjects in which we are so interested are real, we wouldn't need this podcast. I could just I would have a degree in paranormal studies instead of
Yeah.
fucking English, and that could just be your job. Like that, we would have scientific fields devoted to this kind of stuff. And so, I'm sorry, but yeah, obviously your blurry photograph with the 10 red fucking circles in it isn't going to be the thing that convinces everybody, versus like the much more, I would say, substantial evidence that might exist. Like, okay, if the Patterson Gimlin film isn't convincing somebody, what the
Right.
fuck chance does your video or photograph have?
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I use that argument all the time. If that video didn't prove Bigfoot exists, there just isn't anything that will at this point. As far as media goes,
Yeah,
you need a body. At the end of the day, you need a body, and that's okay. It's still okay for us to share ideas, and it's okay. You should still be sharing your experience, regardless of the fact that you're going to have people that come after you.
of course.
Because we want to get more people interested, because the fact of the matter is this community is very small. It's a lot smaller than you guys think it is. And
Yeah,
we want to get more people in it, because the more people we get into it, especially people that are on an academic level that can help kind of facilitate us looking at this stuff scientifically, is very important. It's very important. But I just wanted to circle back real quick. Tobias, does your degree actually say fucking English on it?
it does. Yeah, I actually I had to pay extra for that, believe it or not.
Good for you.
Right. Yeah. Fucking English with a
Fucking
with a
English.
minor in being rad.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you. I had to work really hard for it, but no, you're absolutely right, and I don't want to give people the wrong idea. I feel like, because I really try to apply some standards of critical thinking to all of this stuff, that I can come off as kind of, well, just kind of a dick, frankly. Kind of a debunker, or ardent skeptic, and that's not really where I'm coming from. I'm not a believer, because I don't believe in anything, and I don't mean that in like a weird nihilistic way. I mean that in a I'm okay with not knowing if something exists kind of way, right? Where I don't have to believe in the extraterrestrial hypothesis to know that people see things in the sky that they can't explain. That's what a UFO is. We don't know what it is, right? And so my personal approach when dealing with witnesses is always to treat their their experience as though they're relating it to me authentically, unless I have evidence to the contrary. Like there's some kind of evidence that they're hoaxing it or something, but that almost never happens. It doesn't happen very often. And so, I believe. I believe, I guess, if you want to call it that, well, belief is still isn't a good word. I'm certain that people are experiencing things they can't explain. And I'm okay with not knowing what they are, because the reality is we don't. And so you don't have to believe in anything to be
Yeah.
interested in these subjects. In fact, the more you believe, the less useful as an investigator and researcher you're likely to be.
Yeah. Well, sort of. I kind of disagree with you there, because I'm on the opposite end. I believe that there are anomalous things happening. I can't tell you what they are exactly, but I believe in that so strongly that I believe in the importance of weeding out the obvious bullshit to get to the truth of the matter. Um, I am a skeptic because I want to believe in these things, and it will never get anywhere if we still keep spotlighting ridiculous claims and ridiculous stories and things that
Mm.
just aren't helping the community at all.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I really don't think that we're at odds on that at all. I mean, I guess saying that like you believe in anomalous phenomena, I think that is basically what I'm saying, using different words. I'm not saying that I believe in anomalous phenomena, because I don't need to. Something either exists or it doesn't, right? And
Sure.
so all I'm saying is, I know for a fact that people are experiencing things that they can't explain. And I don't know what those things are. And one of the things that I accept as a possibility uh, would be, well, if we want to talk about UFOs, like I'm open to the possibility of anything from, interdimensionality to the extraterrestrial hypothesis to ultra terrestrials to whatever. Like I'm open to all of it, but I can't believe in any of it, or I should say, I choose not to believe in any of it, because I don't have enough evidence in favor of any of those hypotheses, um, for me to be able to give it that kind of weight. It
Yeah.
could be any or none of those things, but that doesn't for a second mean that, one, people aren't experiencing weird stuff, and
Mhm.
two, that any of those are impossible as explanations. It's just, as soon as I pick one, as soon as I'm like, oh no, I believe it's the extraterrestrial thing, right? Then all of a sudden I am unfairly biased towards that as in explanation,
True.
and I can't do my job, right? Like if I am convincing myself of something without evidence in favor
Yeah.
of that specific explanation. That's what I mean by not believing in things, or um, yeah, just trying not to be biased towards anything that's unproven. That's all.
You have to keep that. You got to keep a shred of doubt in your mind at all times. That's healthy, and that is the way to go about investigating something in general. You have to. You're right. Be able to have an unbiased approach to these topics, or at minimum, when you're presenting the information, be able to admit that you have a biased approach to said topic,
Yeah,
which is a hard thing for a lot of people to do. So,
very true.
you got to be at least able to hold yourself accountable there. And anyway, well, speaking of unbiased opinions and things that we know things about, Tobias, you have a history with winged humanoids, I hear.
I do. I mean, not me personally, but I
Right.
have worked with a lot of witnesses who have witnessed seemingly impossible things, and this is sort of what I'm talking about. I have experienced strange things in my own life, things that I think defy easy rational explanations. although I've never seen a winged humanoid, but I've interviewed enough witnesses who have certainly seen something. They've experienced something outside of their understanding, and of that I have no doubt. Regardless of what the explanation ends up being, the one thing that I can say with certainty is that these people are experiencing something that they can't explain, and the consistency of their experiences is what I find so interesting. The idea that people are consistently reporting this 6 or 7 foot tall, dark or black creature, a humanoid creature with 12 to 15 foot wingspan and these red eyes. Like, that is weirdly specific, especially
Yeah.
given how often the people with whom I have spoken are not really familiar with these subjects. I mean, yeah, you and I obviously, like, we've heard of Mothman. We are familiar with the Point Pleasant sightings. We grew up reading John Keel, right? But I got to tell you, even in the paranormal community, we are a tiny minority. But you expand
Yes.
that into right, but you expand that into
Hmm.
the larger realm of just regular people going about their business. Nobody fucking knows who Mothman is. Like, nobody's heard of that shit
Right.
outside of Point Pleasant, right? Like, and so you get these otherwise normal people who have, absolutely no reason to know anything about this creature, and they're all describing the same thing. Well, that's weird. That's weird as hell.
That is weird. That is weird. I was gonna ask, which I've probably asked you before on the show, but because we are just doing a general, I figured we're not gonna focus on just one winged humanoid, but a couple of different ones. Before you took on Mothman cases in your area, or winged humanoid cases, we'll just call it that. What was your history? I mean, were you a Mothman fan? Had you heard about it? How interested were you in it?
Sure. I had definitely heard of it. I was not super interested. The first John Keel book I ever read was, oh God, what was it? It was, I'm trying to remember the damn name of it now. I should have looked it up.
He's written like
It
10 of them.
was, yeah, right. I know, right? It was his guide to mysterious beings, I think.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
Or
and
maybe
so, like,
street
it's just,
creatures from beyond time and space. That was
no, it's definitely not. It's definitely not that. Hold
okay.
on, I can literally look this up. The Complete Guide to Mysterious Beings.
Oh,
That's what
you were
it was.
close.
Yes, that was the first. And I mean, this was in like junior high. It was the first John Keel book that I ever read. And so that was my introduction to him, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. And so later in high school, I read the Mothman prophecies, and I was like, wow, this is interesting. There's a lot of, like, just bizarre stuff in here,
Yeah.
and it wasn't really consistent with a lot of the other information that I was getting regarding
Hmm.
these kinds of subjects. So I read it, I was like, wow, that's really wacky, and then I mean, that was kind of it. And then I kind of just went on with my life, but I never stopped reading John Keel. um and I always really enjoyed his work. I enjoyed his perspective specifically, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I had a huge interest in Mothman specifically. I liked reading
Hmm.
Keel's work, but the Mothman stuff was just another part of it, and not even that big of a part to me, right? Um, and so it wasn't until much later, when I started investigating winged humanoid uh, reports, where I really decided to circle back and re-examine his work that he had done on that subject specifically.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say that I think John Keel is a big. Well, when you start really getting into it, John Keel is probably the first place that you start, and I think it makes sense to start there.
Mm.
Not many people take it further than that, though, or like you said, circle back or dig deeper. Um, I have kind of a similar history, sort of. Mine was a little more skeptical. The first time I'd ever heard about the Mothman, I remember, it was I was at the local library. I was there listening to James Willis give a talk on just weird things in Ohio. He had just, well, I don't know if he just came out with his book, but he was there pitching his Weird Ohio book. And he kind of barely brushed over the Mothman topic for a moment. So the only reason why I remember it so significantly was because he had this like keychain light thing, and I'm still not really sure what its purpose was, but it has something to do with paranormal investigation. And he pulled it out, and it had like two red lights on it, and he was like taking it and he was like flapping it around, and he's like, "Oh, it's a Mothman." And it was just silly, right? It
Okay.
was dumb. I actually, my life kind of came full circle. Of course, I bought his Weird Ohio book, and from there, all my friends that could drive, we were visiting the places around Ohio. This is very early days. I definitely wasn't an investigator by any means, but early days of an interest. But I never believed in the Mothman story. But I was saying it came full circle because I actually was the MC at the Frogman Festival. I think you were there.
Hmm. I
And I
was,
got to,
yeah.
yeah, you were there. I got to present James Willis actually because he was one of the speakers, so it was neat, it was interesting. But anyway, so that was really the first time I'd ever really heard about it, and then I'd kind of just through being, I was always into cryptozoology mostly, and just through being in those circles, kind of heard about it, but wasn't interested. I always thought that it was a giant owl. you know I knew the basics, and I didn't really take those accounts very seriously, and I mean continued not to until it wasn't even when I went to the Mothman Festival in 2019. It was even after that point where I was like, I think there's actually something to this. I just kind of knew the surface, of the Mothman, and then as you start kind of going over some of those experiences, and I agree not to be not to get on a soapbox and shit all over Keel. I'm not doing that. I have looked at some of the original reports, have compared them to the Mothman prophecies, and sometimes they don't match up.
You are absolutely right about John Keel. And that was something that was difficult for me at first. The inconsistencies, the errors, the seeming fabrications that would pop
Hmm.
up in his work. Especially now. Boy, if you want people to just fucking hate you in this field, or at least like certain people, go out and like start pointing out some of the shit that he just straight up got wrong. And people, boy, there are people who will circle the wagons real quick, and they will not be friendly to you about it. And I think that's a shame,
Yeah.
because the the deification almost that we're seeing of Keel and his work, now that he's passed away, is it's not helpful, right? Like, it's not a useful stance to be so incredulous about somebody's work. Um, but no, that's something that I noticed when I reread the Mothman prophecies. Once we started getting all of the Lake Michigan Mothman uh, reports and all of that stuff, I needed to go back and try to provide some context, right? Try to
Hmm.
figure out some, like, any similarities between any other reported phenomena that might be similar, right? And so, like I said, that's where I started. And when you reread that book as a grown adult who has been doing this for a long time, you see all this, the cracks, right? Like, all of these cracks begin to appear in that specific work. I mean, it's bad enough and you can say he's a product of his time, but like it's bad enough
Oh,
where
yeah.
like dude decided that he had to comment on and judge the appearance of literally every woman in the whole book,
Mhm.
like every single one. And it's just like, dude, I don't care. Like, what is this? But anyway, none of that is necessarily. It doesn't have
Well,
anything to do with what we're talking about.
and also no, it kind of does. Also, the fact
Okay.
that anybody who wasn't white was a Men in Black automatically,
Yeah,
basically.
no, you're right. Okay, that's fair, and I should have thought of that right away and mentioned it too. So, no, yeah, okay, yeah, no, that's totally fair. I mean, and you make a really good point. So I'm going to retract that. Yeah, I think it does have everything to do with what we're talking about, because if you can't rely on somebody's perception like that, then if there is some kind of clear bias that's so obvious, then yeah, it kind of throws everything into doubt. And I mean that's sort of the Mothman prophecies, though, isn't it? It's not this factual documentary, that's trying to, or that does uh, accurately capture these events. It's literally creative nonfiction, telling
Yeah,
things expressly through John Keel's point of view. And so, from a literature standpoint, recognizing that it's creative nonfiction at best, and recognizing that Keel is himself an unreliable narrator, um,
right.
then the book takes on a whole new meaning. And sort of how I look at it at this point is sort of a work in the Grand Fortean tradition, right? I don't know that Keel really believed anything that he was saying, and I don't mean that in the sense that it was meant to be a deliberate hoax. I think that a lot of people just kind of miss the point, right? Where I don't think you're supposed to read it and believe every word. I don't think you're supposed to read it and believe that ultra terrestrials has definitively solved the UFO enigma. No, I think you're supposed to read it as a collection of speculations surrounding unexplained phenomena. And I think
Mhm.
a lot of the issues we have are with people taking that shit way too fucking seriously and just believing it word for
Yeah.
word. And that's I don't think that's right. I don't think that's what we were ever supposed to do in the first damn place.
Yeah, I like Keel. I'll say that. I like reading John Keel. I think it is interesting. I think it is an interesting perspective. I think some of his theories are interesting, but I don't necessarily agree with everything that he has to say, and especially knowing what I know now. Because listen, I've talked to some of those witnesses in that book personally.
Mm.
Like I said, I've read the reports and I know that they don't match up. And that was something I can't even, I can't even take Tobias's way out and say, well, I was a kid and I was young. No, I read this in 2019. That's when I read it. So, but I was new to it. And again, I do think that it is a good place to start. But it's not the end all be all of these happenings of this creature in question specifically, and even some of the stories in it obviously are not the end all be all in what Keel says compared to what may have actually happened. And that's just 40 in research period. Like, you can't just take one person's word for it and go, well, I guess that's it, we can call it a day. Just
Right.
doesn't work that way. You should be getting all different perspectives and all different sides and all different theories, because it is all pure speculation at this point. So why not take a bite out of a couple of different perspectives. But yeah, I mean, that is it was unfortunate to learn that some of those things were kind of exaggerated or just incorrect. I mean, some of the facts, I should have brought up some of my examples. I didn't. Some of the facts are just silly. They're just silly. Like, they shouldn't be incorrect. It doesn't change the story. It's like,
Right.
okay, why'd you do this? It's just kind of dumb mistakes, and that's fine. In the
Sure.
grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter to me that Keel got some of the facts wrong, deliberately, not deliberately, whatever, because these sightings are still that, I mean, a lot of them are still very valid. They still happened, whether they happened the way Keel said they did or not. People were still seeing something anomalous in that area. And I'll thank you personally, Tobias. I don't know if it was you. I don't know who coined
Hmm.
this being Mothman. Did anybody coin it in the Chicago area? Did anybody start that? Was that solely you because of the book? How did that happen?
No. Well, if you're talking about the Chicago sightings
Yeah,
specifically, right away, when the first three sighting reports came into the Mutual UFO Network in like spring of 2017, they compared it to the Mothman sightings. So they actually published a short
gotcha.
article on their website where they related these sightings to the Point Pleasant Mothman sightings. So like right out of the gate, there was no gap at all. It was sightings happened immediately. People start talking about Mothman, and I was fairly resistant to that for the most part.
Hmm.
I still don't. If I'm writing an article or something, I almost never put Mothman in the headline. But I tried to exclude the subject entirely from the articles that I would write, because I didn't want to sensationalize anything. I would use really clunky phraseology, kind of the like the same stuff that I use now, right? Where all it's winged humanoid or flying humanoid or winged creature, being, entity, whatever. And like I said, the reason is because I just very much did not want people to think that I was capitalizing on this other sighting flap to try
Hmm.
to increase viewership. Because that's just not journalistically responsible. It's not ethical to
Yeah.
do something like that. But at a certain point, framing the experiences in that way, using that word Mothman, it was just the best way to contextualize these sightings for people. I mean, it was the best
Yeah.
way to let somebody know ahead of time sort of what they were getting into, like what they could expect, what types of phenomena were being reported by these witnesses, because so much of it did match up to the what people in Point Pleasant were actually seeing. And what's interesting too is all the time I would get fucking people who would be like, well, were there men in black though?
Oh yeah.
Was there a disaster though? And I'm like, none of that shit is fucking relevant, because it wasn't even relevant in the 60s,
Right.
like it's never been fucking relevant. I know that you think that you've got yourself a gotcha here, but no,
Yeah.
no, just no. So
Yeah.
like,
Sorry.
yeah, I mean that's some of the damage that's been done by
Right.
people misunderstanding the Mothman prophecies, by people trying to
Hmm.
take it literally, and use it as the framework for investigating winged humanoid sightings. And so, yeah, I mean, there is all of this stuff, all of this extra stuff that Keel included that people look for now. And I mean, I guess some of it's there. Certainly in these areas, people have also reported all other manner of strange creatures and UFOs, but people do that shit everywhere. Like that's not Point Pleasant isn't special.
Right.
Fucking
Yeah.
Illinois and Wisconsin aren't special for that. People report it everywhere. That's why
Hmm.
I don't like people talking about like high strangeness window areas. I think that shit's fucking not real. I think that like we have issues of reporting, in that you get clusters of reports from a specific area,
Hmm.
usually because somebody reported one sighting that was then seen by other people who have had similar experiences, and then they go on to report their sightings. But that doesn't mean that the activity is greater there than it is anywhere else, because we don't have enough reporting to know that. My experience has
Yeah.
been that this shit happens everywhere, basically about evenly, as far as I can tell. And it's
Hmm.
just an issue of reporting whether or not people hear about it in a specific area.
Yeah, that's
So,
I famously hold that idea. I agree with that. I know one of the first things I started doing was mapping. Google Maps makes it very easy to map out sightings and things like that. So I started mapping all high strangeness, all of it. And
mm,
I had met cartographer, Map in Black cartographer Jeff Craig at CryptidCon for the first time, and Jeff has a display of his Map in Black, which is basically the same thing. It's just mapping all these areas that you can go to and see. That's strange. And I look at his map and I see, down the East Coast, you've got all these sightings, down in the Midwest, you got all these sightings, all this weird stuff. Then you hit the middle of the country and nothing's really happening, and then it picks back up again in the West. And I know that people listening to this are like, yes, yes, yes. And I asked Jeff about that. I said, Jeff, why do you think that this is? And Jeff, who is a cartographer by profession, said, oh, yeah, that's easy. It's because those places have less people to
mm-hmm,
report things. And,
yeah,
and then, like you said, it seems like there's a cluster because they, if you look at like Point Pleasant, it seems like there's one because they had John Keel and Mary Hyre to report these things to. The Whitwell UFO flap, they had Danny Gordon. There's always finally somewhere to kind of go. There's always some type of media involvement, it seems, or a person, and people feel safe talking to people about it. We don't have Ghostbusters, right? There's not a dedicated reporting system for this stuff. That's unfortunate. People try, it just never really quite gets off the ground.
right. Yeah, no,
So
yeah, I
I
mean,
agree with
you
that.
are 100% correct, and obviously, Jeff knows what the hell he's talking about, and yeah, I
Right.
mean, he's like everything that we know from like data scientists backs that up. Well, that's another thing. There's a lot of stuff in the Mothman prophecies where I just feel like Keel's just pulling it straight out of his ass. Like he'll say things like, well, like being more likely to spot a UFO on fucking Wednesdays, right?
Yeah.
It's not that's not a thing. Like that's
It's not.
demonstrably not a
Yeah.
fucking thing. It wasn't a thing at the time he wrote it either, which is why I have to question whether or not he knew what he was saying was false or not, right? Even with the numbers he presents in that book, like the number of sightings on a Wednesday versus any other day of the fucking week is not appreciable. It's not like it's not a significant fucking number. And so, but he was like, oh no, I talked to scientists or whatever the hell he said. And he didn't name any of them, of course. But he was
No.
like, no, I talked to scientists or mathematicians or something, and they said, guys, that they said it's important. Um, but it's not, and it's not real. And from actual data scientists who will actually stand by their work and show their work, like we can see today that you're most likely to spot UFOs at the same time, and this is going to sound crazy, but hear me out, the same times of day, days of the week, and months of the year where people are likely to be outside. um,
Right. Yep.
and that's it. That's the deciding fucking factor, is whenever people are outside, that's when we get the most UFO reports. Weird,
Yeah.
right?
And
Who could have
don't quote
guessed?
me on it, but I don't believe, and this is something that I was kind of watching closely as it was happening, but I don't believe we had any more sightings of UFOs or Bigfoot or anything anomalous in 2020 than any other time when people actually were outside. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing all these families walking around together. My favorite hiking spot was just inundated with small children and parents, and there weren't more sightings than usual. I don't think, which is interesting. I believe.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Have you
think.
checked into that?
I at the time, yes, and now I'm trying to remember exactly how
What the
everything
outcome was?
played out. I think
Yeah.
there might have been an uptick, but it actually, I'm trying to remember if it actually began a little bit before COVID even,
Hmm.
which was interesting. But yeah, I don't recall like a significant number. Actually, I could maybe look it up. It'll probably take me a minute though. But yeah, I don't.
I mean, I don't
I
know if
guess
anybody ever did the research on it proper. I didn't. You know what I mean? Did you? That's, I
no.
guess
Well,
it's
I
people
just
like us that do that, right?
right. Well, no, I rely heavily on the work of, yeah, like actual scientists, right? So like
Right. I gotcha.
um there are data scientists out there, and they love to fucking play with data. They do that. They don't necessarily have to believe in UFOs or Sasquatch or anything else, but
Hmm,
will they plot
fair.
every single sighting on a map and then
Right.
explain what, like, potentially what all of the data could mean? Fuck yeah, they will. That's what they do for fun. They're data
Yeah.
scientists and huge nerds. Um, yeah, I can't find the actual info like right now, unfortunately.
That's
I'll
okay.
have to.
I'll look into it. I'm curious now, but it just kind of reminded me of it. But anyway, so what I was saying about you or somebody coining the Mothman term is that I completely understand why you were reluctant to use it. However, I kind of appreciate the fact that it has been used. And the reason for that is because what I have found in my research is that winged humanoids aren't new, and they weren't new in the 60s, and they're not ever going to be new. It's been a thing that's been around forever. And it's just called something different culturally, depending on where and what is happening. And so I appreciate, I don't, I've said how I feel about some of the sightings surrounding the Chicago area, but I appreciate the fact that all the data is now starting to kind of be put together in one
Mhm.
resource. And it is unfortunate that it goes under the name Mothman because, I mean, I kind of agree with Keel that, Garuda is way cooler, right?
Sure.
There are better names out there for this thing. But what is your experience now with other winged humanoids, or do you really just focus on that area?
Well, I've received reports from all over the country and even up into Canada.
Hmm.
And that really has informed my opinion on things like, well, the relative, geographic importance of Chicago or Illinois or Wisconsin or Indiana or any of the other states around Lake Michigan where these reports come from. Um, and that's really the kind of, or it's one of the things that really led to me uh recognizing that the areas themselves are of no seemingly special significance. These reports come from all over the damn place.
Sure.
I've got reports from, well, like Maryland or Texas or California or Ontario, and they match exactly what people were describing in Chicago or the greater Illinois area or Wisconsin or Indiana or West Virginia or wherever, where people have been reporting these winged humanoids. Um, and so, yeah, it's a matter, like I said, of reporting. I'd love to hear more from other areas. And the number one thing that I hear from people, though, and this is why I brought it up earlier when I was saying that basically nobody has fucking heard of Mothman outside of
Hmm.
our weird little circles,
Right.
is you really, like, the number one thing that I hear from witnesses is that they have these impossible experiences, right? And they're very impactful, regardless of what you think is behind them. They're very powerful to the people who experience them, and they want to talk about it. They absolutely do, and they usually go to a loved one first, like a friend or a close friend or a family member, spouse, sibling, etc. And of course, the number one reaction is that that person doesn't take them seriously, and that can be sometimes hurtful, and so they don't talk about it until they find somebody like us. And so they don't know who the fuck Mothman is. They don't understand any of the context or any of the baggage that comes from Keel or anything else. They don't know anybody else has ever seen anything like this until
Yeah.
they finally find somebody who is reporting on it. And that's how I I know that there's something interesting happening. Again, regardless of what you think that might be, there's something fascinating behind this, because for all of these people who really have no interest in the subject of Mothman or winged humanoids or whatever, to be experiencing something so similar, something that they have no idea about, no context for, like nothing to relate it to the point where they will just take it to their grave, if they don't
Yeah.
find somebody like us to talk to. Um, you know, there's something to that, right? Like there has to be like that. Of course,
Hmm.
that's interesting.
Yeah. It is a very, I mean, more so than the encounters themselves. I don't so much find those interesting. Like, what, you seen a Mothman? Me too. Whatever, it's no big deal. It's the stories that follow it. I agree with that. It is a very personal experience, and I find that fascinating. And so I have tried to seek out, not necessarily seek out, because I just, I hate to like get on social media and be like, "Hey, you seen a Mothman?" Because you're gonna get fucking, 90% of your people are gonna come on and be like, "Yeah, I did," and they didn't. It's just the internet.
Right.
But one thing, because we're in America and it's so prevalent, that I do look into pretty heavily are angel encounters. People that have had experiences with angels, because they're so fucking similar. You can't tell me they're not the same thing. And I know that to anybody, and maybe you listen to the show and you're Christian and you're like, oh, that's blasphemy. I get it. But listen, hear me out on this. Again, these are very personal experiences. And when you actually read the Bible and you read descriptions of angels, only twice, and I believe it was within the same story, were wings ever even mentioned on these things. They usually don't have wings. Like, that is a very uncommon thing for angels to experience. And then you have these, I saw a really bright light, and then I saw this angel, came to me, and I just knew. I had a sense of knowing. And, from there, my entire life changed. Okay, in Mothman sightings, you've got, oh, I saw a really bright light, and then this being in the sky, and then this being appeared. And, then after that, then I had this sense of knowing. And it's very textbook, the way that these encounters, and I'm not saying every single encounter is the same. It's not. And that is another piece of this very interesting puzzle, is there is some variance. But you'll find more people that are more willing to talk about their angel encounters, because those are seen as positive within their culture. They're seen as a good thing. Than you will people that, first of all, know what the Mothman is, know that they saw the Mothman, and they're willing to talk about it. And I just find that really fascinating. Have you had people tell you their angel encounter stories?
Not angels specifically. It's interesting that you bring that up though, because there was a winged creature sighting in um, St. Gerardo, Missouri, actually, that reminded me significantly of uh, an angel encounter as related in the Bible. And basically what the person had described was, it was kind of just like a mass of wings, you know, and it was sort of undulating, I think, in this sort of repetitive motion as it flew past her. And that
Hmm.
really, it really just reminded me of one of those bizarre angel sightings that or encounters that you read about in the Bible. Because you're right, just it's never just a person with wings in the Bible.
Wings, right?
Sometimes angels would like appear as just normal people, which is why you're supposed to be nice to everybody, because you never know if you're
Right.
accidentally, like, if some unexpected guest might be actually an angel or something. So
Yeah.
you watch out. You don't want to get judged by God's secret police or whatever. um, but yeah, most of them were just fucking bonkers. They would just be like
Yeah.
a mass of wings and eyeballs, and people would look at them and fucking shit their pants or whatever. Um, and so this was more like that, right? Where it was just this weird mass of wings that she just really couldn't wrap her mind around. And so, I've
Interesting.
certainly got those kinds of sightings that I think are easy to relate to biblical angels, in that they are fucking crazy, and it's difficult for people to wrap their minds around them because
Hmm.
of how alien and unusual they are. And my opinion has always kind of been that religions are, well, they're serving the same purpose in a way that that a lot of our work is, you know, like they're a way to create a narrative around all of this unexplained stuff, to try to explain it, to try to make it make sense, right?
Mhm.
And so I don't well, I should say I think it's very possible that you know, the people who wrote the Bible, who are talking about all of these just bizarre encounters with these winged entities or these bizarre alien creatures, um, could have been having experiences similar to
Right.
the people that we talk to today. And you know, so if you say, well, okay, you know, is Mothman an angel? Well, I don't know. What the fuck is a Mothman and what the fuck is an angel? You know, like
Right.
you can't
Yeah.
just explain one mystery with another like that.
Mhm.
I think it comes down to, in all likelihood, the phenomenon itself probably hasn't changed much. What has changed is the narrative that we've created surrounding it. So, you know, if somebody were to
Right. Our
ask me like, "Hey,
perception
do you,"
of it, yeah.
100%. So if somebody was like, "Hey, do you think angels and Mothman are the same thing?" I mean, maybe. I don't know. I mean, maybe some of them are. Who knows, right?
Yeah, and that's why I like to personally, go outside of the box and think about different things again by a different what we're calling something different, but seeing that has similarities to these other creatures. Another example of it potentially, are gargoyles, which
Mhm.
gargoyles. You know, a lot of people don't know the history of gargoyles. So let me talk about that for a second. Gargoyles were initially just a kind of a piece of architecture that they would put up on buildings to help get rid of basically cover their gutters pretty much on these buildings, and so they would asphyxiate a gargoyle statue up because frankly the entry point where all this was happening was really ugly. But not just that, some of the lore surrounding it, there is a little bit of lore. It does come from an old story where supposedly somebody went and slayed a beast and then took that beast's head and put it up on the corner of the building to show the rest of the beasts that they were, not to be fucked with. Don't come over here. We'll cut your head off and display it on our building. So when they started kind of integrating these into architecture, um, they just figured, hey, why not? It was kind of actually more of a fun thing. I mean, some people, I guess, maybe superstitiously took it serious, right? You have a gargoyle in your house to show other monsters that you are big and bad and strong. But I think it was more kind of. How we now as adults actually believe in things like Santa Claus, even though we know it doesn't exist, right? Um, I should probably put a parental
Well,
advisory on this episode,
well,
but
hold on now. We don't know that Santa Claus doesn't exist.
okay, fair. Fair enough. You're right. Um, I guess I'll think of something else that's probably equally as fun.
Well, before you do,
Let's see.
I've received at least 3 Easter Bunny sightings, so you can't say
You're
it's
right.
fake like the Easter Bunny, because again, I keep getting these sightings, so I don't
I
know.
saw the Easter Bunny, so I know the Easter Bunny's real.
Well, there you
I had an
go.
Easter Bunny sighting, so I didn't see it, but something weird happened, and it was definitely the Easter Bunny. So, anyway, fair enough. But I mean, if you're letting your kid listen to the show anyway, you should probably not do that.
Yeah,
But
I've said fuck like 1,000 times, dude.
yeah,
Come
yeah.
on.
Well, you have a degree in fucking English. You kind of have to.
I
It's
do.
required.
I do. It's true. It's my
You know.
specialty.
I mean, just saying. Anyway, so gargoyles kind of have a more fun history rather than a very serious history, if I'm being quite honest with you. Saying that you've seen a gargoyle is a weird thing to say because they're not really revered as real as much as other folklore. I mean, I think lumberjack folklore has been more taken seriously historically than gargoyles. But you have
Mhm.
people that say that they've seen gargoyles, and I think that they have. One kind of, I'm not going to say it's famous. I guess it's really obscure. People know about it sometimes, but people don't, even within this community, is Frank Shaw. Frank Shaw's gargoyle. Have you heard of that story?
Oh, I don't know, maybe. I
I'm
like
sure.
it's not ringing. Well, I mean, like half the time I don't remember people's names, and then I start hearing the story, and I'm like, oh yeah, that.
That's okay. So Frank Shaw worked for NASA. He worked at the Houston, branch of NASA, whatever he did there. And he was an archivist, and he was coming out of work one night. Now, he frequently came home late. His family was used to that, but this particular night he was extra late. He walks out to the parking lot to his car, and on the building sees a gargoyle type creature. It had big bat wings. It was looking very angry at him. But what Frank Shaw had said about it was not just how it looked and how it was horrifying, but that he felt like it was enjoying the fact that he was terrified of it. I think that's interesting.
Mhm.
It didn't talk to him or anything. It just kind of, stood around there for a minute, scaring the guy to death. And then once it was done, it took off and left. And Frank Shaw did the same thing. He got in his car and he went home and was very upset. He did tell his family about it, about what happened. And his wife was like, "You need to tell your supervisor about this. Like, this is serious." And well, it took him a while, but he did eventually disclose to his supervisor what happened. And the supervisor was like, "Oh, yeah, well, we'll take care of that pesky gargoyle or whatever." Actually, the supervisor pulled him into a private room, said, "You are not to ever talk about this ever again. We're very aware of the gargoyle. In fact, it killed two of our guard dogs." Now, I don't know if this story is 100% accurate. Unfortunately, the story was told after Frank Shaw had passed away, and it's been told by his daughter. And I believe Nick Redfern is the only person to have spoken with her. But, um, I have heard stories of people claiming to see gargoyles in random places. One of the ones that I had was somebody driving along, between Pennsylvania and Ohio, and saw one sitting on a guardrail right there on the highway. And that's that. I mean, they just saw a gargoyle sitting there, and that's the story.
Right.
And this seems to happen a lot. In Frank Shaw's case, maybe it's real, and if it is real, I do find it extra interesting that he had some extra sensory perception with this thing. Like I said, like he knew that it enjoyed scaring him. So I don't know. Is it a Mothman? I don't know.
Sure. Well, it's interesting because I've received several gargoyle reports
Mhm.
myself. As especially with the Lake Michigan Mothman stuff, right? And I always had a different approach, I guess, where I assumed that what was happening was people struggling to describe something completely outside of their experience. And so,
Mhm.
while it may not have been a literal gargoyle, which you're right, were just fearsome representations that adorned buildings without significant folklore surrounding the actual existence of gargoyles as like a living creature or something. Um, I assumed that what they were doing was finding something in popular culture that they could relate it to.
Right.
Something to make it make sense. Something that could help them explain their sighting. Because I've had people, let's see, the bad guy from Jeepers Creepers.
Yes. Yep.
That's been a popular one for people
Mhm.
to relate their sighting to. Gargoyles again, obviously, or I even had a witness down in Rockford, Illinois, who related her winged humanoid sighting to the character Marcus from Underworld.
Oh,
So, and
interesting.
yeah, when it wasn't again, when usually when people say that, they don't mean that that's literally what it looked like.
Right.
It's just it was something she could relate the general shape to, I guess,
Mhm.
because when you're talking about a winged humanoid, um, it's just very difficult for people to describe because it's so alien to them. I think a lot of people, even if they don't have a fucking English degree, you know, struggle quite a bit to find the vocabulary to describe these.
Yeah.
And and so they just reach for anything they can, be it gargoyles or fucking Marcus from Underworld or, you know, the dude from Jeepers Creepers or whatever.
Whatever it is. Yeah. I agree. I mean, more people know what gargoyles are than they do what Mothman is, So
Mm.
that's going to be their go-to. I think more people probably know what gargoyles are more than Bigfoot. Just because it's been so. I mean, who didn't watch the show from the 1990s Gargoyles?
I fucking
Everybody
love
did,
Keith
obviously.
David. I
Right.
wish he got more work. If it, you
Right.
know, I'll watch anything with Keith David in it. Absolutely,
Exactly.
love that show.
So so I'm just saying, I mean, I think it would be not and I think that gives more weight to these sightings though. When people don't immediately go it's Mothman, you already know they don't have a history with it. You know. And so I feel like it gives it a little more credibility when they come forward and describe it as something else. I don't
Sure.
think that that's a bad thing. Another one I want to talk about that I feel like doesn't get enough play, and it should, are the butterfly people. Have you? I don't know if you're familiar with this one, but
Yeah.
this is a weird one. On May 22nd, 2011, Joplin, Missouri experienced a terrible F5 tornado. And this tornado killed about 160 people. I mean, it was some serious shit. But kids that were in the hospital, kids that were recovering, kids that had lost family, kids in mass had reported seeing these winged humanoid people. They described them as being colorful and beautiful. I mean, all very, very good descriptions, protecting people, either hovering over them to protect them from the tornado, either carrying people off, they claim, to safety. Some of them even claim to carry the dead people up to the sky. And this actually got a lot of attention at the time, and there were professionals that did come in and interview the kids, and they were just thinking, well, this is just trauma. It's just a terrible experience. So they tried to, in their little traumatized kid brains, tried to make it something better. But again, you had kids that were completely unrelated to each other reporting these things. Have you heard of this story?
I have. That's actually one that even my friends who aren't into this stuff have heard of. And so, you know, they'll be like, oh shit, okay, so like you wrote a book about winged humanoids or like you investigate this weird shit. Have you heard of the Joplin butterfly people? And so they'll send me articles about that. So yeah, no, it's bizarre. I mean, it's like
Mhm.
it's sort of the aerial school UFO landing
Yeah.
of winged humanoid sightings, right?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, it's a very good analogy. Yeah, it's a weird one. That's some good stuff right there. That's some good high strangeness, though. I enjoy it greatly. But I feel like, yeah, it's never really, people don't really talk about it. And am I saying that these butterfly people were Mothman? Well, no, not necessarily. But I'm not saying it isn't. You know.
Sure.
Because I don't fucking know. Again, when I catch Mothman eventually with my butterfly nets, I will ask him.
Right.
But I think that it is still important, again, to take note of these things, and especially something like that where it did kind of have some type of you know s- some type of scientific study to it. Of course, again, like I said, the conclusion is like mass hysteria and trauma, from, because that's horrible. That's a horrible situation to be in, to be honest. But I don't know. I think there's something to it. I don't know what, but I would like
Sure.
there to be something to it. Um,
Yeah. No, I
so oh, go ahead.
oh, oh no, I was just going to agree with you. I mean, I think that it is a very, very interesting sighting. And, you know, it sort of shares that aspect of high strangeness with other Mothman sightings where you've got this fairly credible testimony, but fuck all to show for it otherwise. You know, you've
Yeah.
got these people with no reason to lie, who according to mental health professionals aren't necessarily making it up, even if they determine later that it's some sort of mass hallucination or trauma effect or something. Like they're not making it up. Like they had that experience, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And so like that's very very credible. We can say with 100% certainty, at least as much as we can, you know, say anything about anything with 100% certainty, that they had this experience, you know. And
Yes.
if somebody wants to explain it away as a trauma uh, uh, effect, like that's fine. That's totally their business. And if somebody else wants to explain it away as some undiscovered entity or being or creature, then that's fine too. You know,
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily judge anybody for thinking either under those circumstances. But yeah, no, it's fascinating, and it because of its credibility and its association with or similarity rather with other sightings, and it deserves to be in the canon. You know, I think it's something that should be included when you're talking about these types of sighting experiences.
Let me ask you this. What kind of criteria do you use when trying to categorize whether or not you feel like this fits a Mothman narrative or not?
Well, I try to strip away the narrative, right? Because
Sure.
that gets us into John Keel territory. You know, that gets us into, oh well, there weren't fucking, you know, men in black or a bridge didn't collapse. Well, then it's
Mhm.
not Mothman. And I don't think that's useful, because I think that shit's all not related to anything. But yeah, so I guess in terms of narrative, yeah, like hold on a sec. Let me back up for a second. Yeah.
You want me to go first?
No, no,
Okay.
I know I know what I was gonna say. I said narrative one too many times. Um
Come on,
yeah,
you gotta put that fucking English degree to good use.
I know, right? No, when it comes to categorization, like winged humanoids for me are all put in the same category, because I don't know enough about any of them to categorize them much more specifically than that. And I think that you see enough of variation in descriptions and things, even within a relatively small geographic area, that I think that they are related regardless. You know, so let's say somebody says that they saw a winged humanoid that was 6 feet tall with 12-foot wingspan and bright orange eyes. And somebody else says that they saw a winged humanoid in the same area, maybe 10, 15 miles away, that had bright red eyes, and it was 7 feet tall and a 15-foot wingspan. And, you know, maybe one of them said, oh, it had skinny legs, and the other person said it had muscular legs. Well, those kinds of differences aren't important enough, I think, to change the category of something. Those are the kinds of differences, to me, that could easily be explained by the normal variation in perception that you would that you would expect from multiple witnesses, right? Like if you show 10 people the same object and then ask them to describe it, you are going to get 10 different descriptions, and they might vary considerably, because that's just how human minds work, you know. But that doesn't mean they're not describing the same object. And so, for me, I haven't seen enough for me to categorize any of these winged humanoid sightings as anything other than, you know, being under the general umbrella of winged humanoid sightings. And then from there, you can find a lot of important similarities. You know, like then you start seeing stuff like other associated paranormal phenomena experienced by these witnesses.
Mhm.
You start to hear about consistent narratives regarding, well, like their uh, uh, the reactions they receive when they try to tell their stories, or the fear that they maybe have felt, or the impact that this has had on their lives. And there are all of these consistent threads throughout, which connects them all. So yeah, I guess, if it answers that question at all, I don't categorize these um as anything other than winged humanoid sightings, because I don't have enough information or enough evidence at this point to make me feel like a more specific category is required for any of them so far.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that largely. It's not so much. It's not like, oh well, it didn't have red eyes, so it's obviously not Mothman. It's not like, oh, you're saying it was white instead of black. It can't be Mothman. Oh, it was brown. I don't really. I think that the circumstances surrounding it is more what makes me interested, and kind of piques my interest, which is why, for me, when I hear the story of like Frank Shaw's gargoyle, I immediately, it piques my interest because of that element of it enjoying being scary. Because that just makes sense. That definitely checks out with Mothman lore, and I think that those circumstances are more important. What happens immediately after, or even emotionally during, that for me make it significant to kind of throw in there. And I agree. I think that it would be a disservice to kind of um, throw any of this away, and be like, well, that, we're just going to set that somewhere else. It doesn't belong here because we don't know. So we might as well just, keep it. I like to use canon earlier. It will keep it within the canon, because why the hell not? It's not hurting anything to be there. So
Yeah.
why not? I think that winged humanoid roughly is just it. I mean, I think if there's any category, it's just that. But even humanoids up for debate because, for me personally, I put things like the Algonquin flying head in that category. And I think I just am I here? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Did I cut out?
No.
Oh, okay.
I was listening to you
That was
talk
weird.
about the Algonquin flying head.
Oh, well, okay. That was weird. Anyways, high strangeness happening over here. The Men in Black are trying to interfere in
Oh
my
boy.
recording. They weren't successful, so I'm obviously better than they are. But, in that case, again, it's more of a giant mass with wings, but it's the circumstances surrounding it. It comes to the village and it brings about significant negative changes. Not that I think that Mothman is strictly associated with negativity, but I think it can be. I think it's the same creature. I think it's the same thing. And, for a long time, I even kind of thought outside of the box, and I even put like Spring Hill Jack into that category. I don't now. I don't think that now. Now that I've really
Mhm.
dug into it, I think Spring Hill Jack was just a pervert and with really cool shoes. But definitely a mysterious human noid, maybe. I think it was just some guy. I'll entertain anything and try to, kind of put it into this box. And if I really feel like it's so anomalous and out there and really doesn't fit any of the patterns, then I'll kind of set it aside. So I'd agree with that assessment. What's your favorite winged humanoid encounter that you've heard?
Oh boy. I don't even know if I have a favorite. Actually I did want to mention, interestingly enough, when you're talking about that Frank Shaw experience, I had a similar one in uh Waukegan, which is just north of Chicago, where this guy, and this actually was information that came from this guy's daughter as well, because the guy himself had passed away, but she had reached out to me on his behalf, and because he had told her this experience when it happened, and she remembered how afraid he was, and everything like that, and she said that what had happened to him was he was out one night to help his friend jumpstart his car. This is back in the 70s, and he started feeling afraid very suddenly. They're in this empty parking lot with really nothing nearby it. There's a couple of like, silos and stuff, but no people or anything. And again, like, it's the dead of night, and he just starts feeling inexplicably afraid. And so he he starts looking around, and he turns, and he sees this thing up on this building, this black red-eyed creature that he said then swooped down towards him. And he and his friend, they just got the fuck out of there. Like, they weren't going to stick around, so they jump in dude's car, and they just take off. And I guess this being, whatever it was, decided that it was going to follow him just a little bit, and it was kind of sort of beating on the car and scratched the car up. And this woman that I talked to, of course, she's a grown woman now. She was a kid at the time. She said that her dad, came home and told him about it, and he was visibly shaken and afraid, and she saw the damage that this thing had done to their car and everything. And it just reminded me of that when you were talking about Frank Shaw's experience, about how
Mhm.
it wanted him to be afraid, because that just reminds me so much of what sounds almost like this projection of fear. Like, this being was projecting fear onto this guy somehow through some mechanism, um, before it was ever seen, right? Like,
Mhm.
maybe the whole point was to make him afraid. I don't know why, but it certainly seems that way, at least in that specific sighting. So in terms
Yeah, I
of
think it's
favorite, I don't know,
mhm.
but I think it's a cool one.
It is a cool one, and it is very similar. It's interesting. I think that I think the fear response that people have to this thing, whether it happens before, because that's how mine went. I was afraid before I even saw what was happening. All right, but I just chalked it up to the fact that I just ate a bunch of weed brownies and was trying to go to bed. That's
Right.
essentially that's what I was thinking at first, and I didn't see anything to make me feel that way. I just felt that way. So, have you ever seen Monsters Inc?
Yes.
I'm going somewhere with this. So in Monsters Inc., in case anybody here listening has never seen it, your kids probably know. You should ask them real quick while they're listening to. But in Monsters Inc., they power their city. They get their power source from the screams of children, right? From fear, and then eventually, they find out that laughter can also elicit that same kind of power. And probably Mothman's not very funny, so I think that for whatever reason, yes, he does want some type of strong emotion. I keep saying he, and I am assuming, but maybe that's why the fear thing happens. I can't give you any reasonable explanation as to why he would want us to be afraid besides just having some type of strong emotion happening at the time. But that does seem to be, I mean, a factor in most of these cases, but I've heard on the flip side of that, like I've heard, we talked about the butterfly people and how, that was a very positive story. I have had stories where people said that this thing saved their life. I had a guy who said that he was driving down the road. He was falling asleep at the wheel, and he caught a glimpse in his rear view mirror, and it was in his back seat. Now, again, that could have just been a dream thing, right? He's falling asleep. He's
Mm.
admitting that. He didn't actually see anything at all, but he's adamant. He said it saved his life. Linda Sigmund is an original Mothman witness to, during the quote unquote flap, the 1966 and 67 West Virginia flap. Her story is that her and her boyfriend were out there, out and about, joyriding and making out like they do. And, they saw a UFO in the distance, and all of a sudden, it's the UFO is coming towards them. It's like making a beeline towards them, and the Mothman's creature physically picks her up, and they were actually sitting on the hood of the car. It picked her up and put her back into the car. And she believes that this thing potentially stopped her from being abducted, or something along those lines. She's got a book out. I think she talks about it pretty openly. So it's not always a negative experience, but there is some type of, in these instances, emotion, strong emotion, that seems to be kind of what attracts this thing or keeps it around, or I don't know. I don't know what it's after. You have any ideas about
Sure.
that?
Well, I, I could only guess, really. But
Right.
speaking of fear, you're not always trying to scare somebody because you're hostile towards them. Like, well, anybody
Sure.
out there who has kids, I think could probably relate to the idea that sometimes you have to scare somebody a little bit in order to help them. Like if you, for
Yeah.
instance, when I was a kid, if I was about to put my hand on a hot stove, my mom was never like, well, now hold on, Toby, now let's talk about this. Are you sure you want to no, she'd be like, god damn it, get your fucking hand away from that stove.
Yeah.
And it was scary, but that's what I needed, right? Like that
Yeah.
helped me more than gentle encouragement would have.
Mine
um
actually grabbed the hot stove one time, and I think she learned from that. But had I been there
right.
to yell at her, maybe it'd be different.
Yes. And so, I mean, we don't know that if this thing is causing fear on purpose, that it's doing it out of a sense of hostility, because
Right.
nobody's been injured, right? Like nobody's been physically harmed. And certainly there were opportunities where it could have physically harmed somebody. I think
Hmm.
just using that Waukegan sighting as an example, if that thing had wanted to get the drop on those two guys and hurt somebody, it absolutely could have,
Right.
100%. It what it did reminds me a lot of what you might do if you just wanted to scare somebody away, just to get them away for whatever reason, without
Yeah.
actually hurting them. And so maybe that's why there's so much fear. Maybe there is no malevolent intent at all. Maybe there's a very good reason for it. I just don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, we don't know. I don't know. Pure speculation at this point, as to why and what and how. And it's unfortunate that I don't know if we'll ever get the answers. Well, I already said it. Once I catch him in my butterfly net, I'll ask him.
Right. Well,
But
if you can catch him in a butterfly net, that means he's a real cryptid.
that's true. Let's, don't even get me started on this one.
I know. I almost didn't say it. I almost talked myself out of it. So I was like, do we even have time to talk about this?
Yeah, you're gonna make
Probably
me
not.
irrationally angry.
Right.
It's going to be a bad time for everyone. Jesus Christ. Yeah, it's a very, these winged humanoid sightings. I mean, I'll say that, yes, there aren't Mothman nests. You're not going to find them anywhere.
I agree.
Whatever this, whatever this phenomena is gravely personal to everybody that has it. Um, I have not personally ever come. I'm not going to say that they don't exist. However, I have never encountered thus far a witness that this didn't change something significant about them and their life. Whether that be a changed perspective or just other things that have happened. I mean, that is one thing that I find consistently across the board, is that whatever causes it, whether it be the creature itself, the experience, whatever it is, this tends to carry on with them the rest of their life. And I think that is interesting. And I am curious to hear about other creatures in the future and learn about. Certainly, I don't know about every winged humanoid that's ever existed. Um, just go look at like avian type of gods. There's so many. There are so many different deities and different depictions of these higher beings that are humans with some type of wing. Some type of human, some type of wing. I mean, this is a tale older than time itself. It seems we've always had them called something differently and approached from a different perspective, depending on the time period that we're at. And we just so happen to be in a time period right now where it's Mothman mostly. So I anticipate future research. Do you have any closing remarks on winged humanoids or the Mothman phenomena?
Oh boy. Yeah, I think fundamentally, if nothing else, what I want people to take away from this is, regardless of how bizarre these sightings may seem, and regardless of all of the many narratives, accurate or inaccurate, that have sprung up around them, At the core of this phenomenon are real fucking people who are really experiencing something very impactful that changes their lives, and that's worthy of our respect and our consideration. And so I would hope when people approach this topic, they remember that, it's something that needs to color everything we do when interacting with these types of phenomena.
Yeah, it's fun, you know. I like to touch and look at the Mothman's butt as much as the next person, right? It's neat. You know, it's exciting, but you're absolutely right. It involves very real people. And you know, people need to keep, even when you go to Point Pleasant, you guys have to remember that statue is not just a symbol of the impeccable creature that they have in their area, but it's also a memory to a tragic event that they experience. I don't think that they're related directly like that, but that is how they look at it. You know, anybody that's involved and impact in you know, with this phenomenon anyway at all, you know, you should absolutely show them the utmost respect. And just, you know, just in general, be fucking nice to each other. You know, I really got to tell you guys that you're adults, right? Like, just be fucking nice to one another. It's not hard. But yeah, I agree. So, well, with that being said, guys, I will go ahead and we'll end this episode, and I'll see you guys back here next Wednesday.